I strongly believe in community. It's been something that's been constant in my whole life. The more that you can be part of a supportive community, whatever that community is, the safer you will feel. And when you feel safe, you can make good decisions and be more creative.
The Actors' Home has become a safe space for so many of performers. When I was there, I felt seen, safe, and empowered.
The more we rise together, the better it is. I don't want to be on my own somewhere at the top of the mountain. I'd much prefer to be on a plateau with a lot of other people having a party.
I think this is a very healthy and refreshing perspective, that this empowerment doesn't come from the space of battle. It is more about uplifting each other and helping each other and being, supportive of each other.
Said that Ambitchiously Intelligent is we're empowering women in the film industry. We're also interviewing men, because empowerment for me is like this supporting community, men, women, all gender.
I mean, I honestly believe that we're one world. You know,
Yeah.
when we look up at the moon, it's the same moon wherever you are in the world, whatever your gender is, however you identify. We do live on one very small planet. There are plenty of people who want to make the world better and kinder. So we have to talk about that. We have to accentuate, we have to give the voices of positivity and much amplify them. A lot of talk now about balance, like finding balance in your life. And if you're an actor, you can't have a balanced life. So the idea that, I'm seeing it with lots of young people, and they're saying, oh, I need to do this for my balance, this. And I was like, well, just embrace the madness, because balance sounds great in theory, but in practice, you're probably imbalanced if you decided to be an actor. So just enjoy that.
Luci Lenox, thank you so much for your precious time. I want to start with introducing you. You are award-winning casting director. You're based in Spain, and you've cast over 100 productions, amazing films and series. And you are also, and that's how we met, founder of the Actors' Home, which is a global networking community for actors. And when I was there, I felt seen, safe, and empowered, I have to say. And it was the first time that I'd seen something like this, where actors were working together, lifting each other up. Casting directors like you, showing us how to take it into our hands and be active and not just passively there. And what I want to ask you is, as I said, the Actors' Home has become a safe space for so many of performers. What inspired you to build it?
Oh, it's super interesting. I mean, what really inspired me was the pandemic, because I was at home, I didn't want to bake bread, I was bored, and then a young filmmaker, Kristen Dania, and I had been planning a networking event for actors and young directors in Barcelona, and at the beginning of 2020. And then I sent him a message on Instagram saying, hey, that networking event we were talking about, why don't we do it online? And so we started during the pandemic. We called it Get Inspired. It grew really quickly. There were people all over the world. We did something practically every day. We did a lot of table reads. We did a lot of different events with filmmakers. But mainly it was very supportive for actors. And then I saw how much joy actors get out of supporting each other and out of supporting the creative process. We did a lot of table reads for screenwriters and directors who had projects in development during the pandemic. Some of them have been made, these films, so it was very instrumental in helping them. And then I stopped. Get Inspired still exists, but it's kind of archived. 2021 was a bit of a boring year for so many people. I was paying off debts, getting my company going. I wasn't really doing it. And then I suddenly thought, I should do this again, but not on social media, because I didn't want to have it on Facebook anymore. I didn't want to have it. I wanted a safe space. There's many reasons why the Actors' Home is a safe space, but one of them is that there's no upselling. because I've got so bored every time I go on social media. It's trying to sell me a course, trying to sell me clothes. It knows my algorithm, so it knows exactly what I want, you know, and I feel that that's very complicated for actors because they're always being sold, if you buy this course, if you do this, if you just go to this casting director's workshop, it will be okay. And I totally think that that's fine, but I also think it's quite nice to have a space where there is no upselling. So we never sell a course on the Actors Home. We never sell an event. We offer lots of discounts. So if somebody might be promoting something, they'll say, oh, we'll give the Actors Home members a discount, like we have now a 25% discount with IMDb Pro. But it is a safe space, and it's also a very moderated space in that I've spoken to everybody who is a member. We make sure that people are, you know, I don't know. It's just interesting. So my inspiration was the pandemic. And then my other inspiration is having a place that's not on the traditional platforms of social media and that is algorithm free. And the other inspiration was that I strongly believe in community. Yeah. And I believe in community. I mean, it's been something that's been constant in my whole life. The more that you can be part of a supportive community, whatever that community is, the safer you will feel. And when you feel safe, you can make good decisions and be more creative.
That is true. And that's something we all long for so much. And I can only say that that's exactly what I felt at the Actors Home, that it was this safe space. And at the same time, such a beautiful way of, I would say, pushing us a little bit, like out of our comfort zones, out of our, a lot of actors, we tend to then kind of like draw back and be like waiting for the opportunity. And what you do is that you're like, no, what's your elevator pitch? Let's have a, you know, everyone is like kind of a contest, but on a bit, in a beautiful way. So we then kind of think about it like, wait, elevator pitch, right? What is it? What is my elevator pitch? And then we film it, and then everyone looks at it, and so you're being seen, and you've done that with show reels and all these things. So it's really beautiful what you have built
thank
there.
you. I'm very proud of it.
No, you can be.
And it also sounds like this is a community that empower you to be the best version of yourself, to go out in the world and to perform, to do better, and to feel stronger, to feel, you know, coming from a safe place. You mentioned it yourself yesterday when we had our pre-talk that you yourself are coming from a family of very strong women, so you have a very good example. And I guess I'm wondering how has that shaped your own way of mentoring and leading, and what do you think about empowerment in the modern world? Because you also shared that I think this is a very healthy and refreshing perspective, that this empowerment doesn't come from the space of battle. It is more about uplifting each other and helping each other and being, you know, supportive of each other, which I think is an amazing way of seeing things.
I mean, I honestly think that the greatest joy in life is when you're uplifting other people, you know, and it comes from that. And in terms of, I feel incredibly lucky. I feel very, very privileged in my own life. As I said, I come from a long history of pioneering women, and there are a lot of examples in my family history. I'm also very aware of my own privilege, that because I felt very safe and safe to make my own decisions, I was able to take bigger risks. And I'm aware that, you know, I come from a world where I don't have, I'm an immigrant in Spain, but I didn't have to send money back to my family. And I've always known that, you know, my family live in a house in the mountains, but if I ever needed a refuge, there was always a refuge there for me, which means that you can take bigger risks. Whereas if you're coming from a world that if you can't pay your rent, nobody will help you, you have to be a lot more careful. And so I'm aware of the effect that that had on me, and I'm very grateful for it, and therefore I feel like it's my moral, not obligation, but what gives me joy is sharing that, trying to make other people feel safe. I think that the more we rise together, the better it is. I don't want to be on my own somewhere at the top of the mountain. I'd much prefer to be on a plateau with a lot of other people having a party and enjoying life.
Yes, I love it. You know what I also love is that we talked about it yesterday, where I said that Ambitchiously Intelligent is we're empowering women in the film industry. Like, just don't wait. Like, exactly what you do at the actor's home. Like, don't wait. Go out there. You don't have to be 100% perfect. Like, start creating. You have the idea. Take your iPhone. Get your friends. Start, go out there. And then I said, and we're also interviewing men. Because empowerment for me is like this supporting community, men, women, all gender, like equality. And I thought it was beautiful the way you talked about that and your opinion on it. I would love to hear that again.
Well, I mean, I honestly believe that we're one world. You know,
Yeah.
when we look up at the moon, it's the same moon wherever you are in the world, whatever your gender is, however you identify, we do live on one very small planet. It's a little blue dot when you look down from space. And if we can make it a better place for everybody, I mean, it's very complicated to talk about this at the moment for me because the world is in such disarray. There's so many divisive elements. There's so much toxicity.
Yeah.
But that's why we have to really focus on abundance or where there isn't toxicity. There are plenty of people who want to make the world better and kinder. So we have to talk about that. We have to accentuate. We have to give the voices of positivity amplify them. Because at the moment, the voices of negativity are very amplified.
Yeah.
I am very grateful to so many people who've helped me along my path. And sometimes it might be just one conversation. I've been supported very well in my journey by men. Pep Armengol, who was my first casting director who I worked for, I could not have had a better mentor or better person to help me, and he still does. He's like now, after 30 years, he's my family. And so I have these very strong examples. I also have seen, I think one of the problems in society is when we talk about men and women, it's kind of reductive, because I think of more and more about it as positive people and toxic people. So men and women can be toxic. There are many women who are very toxic, and the way they bring up their children,
Yes,
male and female, keeps this going. There are very successful women who are toxic, and then non-toxic or positive people, which is where I would like to see myself and try to be, are the people who are female, male, identifying however they want, but working to make the world a better place for everybody. And so I think that we need for me and my utopian ideas, we need different terms, because I think by putting men in a different camp to us, and it's, I mean, I know there's a lot of the sayings like not all men, but always men. But in fact, I think the more that we talk about how positive, good people are, then more people will feel comfortable joining the good people gang.
true.
And I think it's kind of reductive to. It's a very complicated thing. I did my thesis on this as well, so I know about. It's very complicated when you start deciding whether you have to be separate to gain equality or you have to work together. And there are moments where you have to be separate at times, and there are moments where you need to work together, and that's the same in all of the civil rights movements. However, for me, and this is where I go back to, I've been so incredibly lucky in, I think a lot of things in life are about geography and timing. So I was born at a time for women that was very positive. For lots of reasons, I was born in the 60s. And so I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I grew up in a country that was, there was conflict in my country in Ireland, but has been resolved in my lifetime. I've grown up in a country that's gone from being a relatively poor country to being an extremely affluent country. I've grown up in a time where I was able to be a teenager without social media. I've grown up in a time where when, the pandemic, which is very an important moment in time for people, I was the perfect age to take advantage of staying at home. Whereas if I'd been in my 20s, I laughed. If I'd been locked up with one of my parents, one of us wouldn't have got out alive. If I'd been 16, or if I'd been at the age of, that complicated age in your 30s. It would be much more frustrating, but as I was already in my 50s, it felt kind of like a nice gift of being able to explore different things. So I feel very lucky about the timing of my life, and of course I feel very lucky about the geography of my life. It's a huge privilege to have been a European for the last 57 years, because it wouldn't have been 30 years before. My grandmother was a refugee because of the Second World War. Things were very different. So I've had a very easy ride so far. And now at this stage, whatever happens, in Spanish they say you can't get rid of what you've danced. So I've had a very good dance so far. So that makes me see things in a slightly different way, I think.
But I think what's important to point out is that, we don't choose the families that we are born in. Sometimes, you are privileged and you acknowledge that. But it's what you specifically in your space decided to do with this privilege. And what you've decided is to spread joy and love and kindness and to bring everyone, a safe space. And I think this is beautiful. And we need more people like you for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we just all, I think we have to talk about it. That's why I'm being so frank about this, is that because this gives me so much more to me personally than what I'm giving. And that's something that's very, I feel very, it's great fun to organise a community. It's great fun to meet with people. It's great, it's really nice to give something positive to the world. So, and that gives me an enormous sense of joy. And I wish more people would share that kind of joy. I'm sure that I'm much, much happier as a person because of this than somebody who is, spending their whole time criticising other people or bullying people. Anyway, it's complicated. And my life's not perfect. I have lots of ups and downs. There's lots of stress. I have a lot of family drama. I have a lot of personal drama. But I also have this safe space where I can do what I want.
You were talking about age, and as you said, that you were lucky. And I would like to... There's something we talked about before, and that was you were challenging the idea that there are no roles for older women in the film industry. And I would love to hear your opinion on that. Because there's...
I think there are loads of roles for older women. One of the things that we have to accept as in the film industry and TV industry for actors is that there is a scarcity of roles and an abundance of actors. And I think a lot of people forget that, where are the most unemployed actors in the world? LA. There is no demand for actors that's saying, oh, please, bring us your actors. We don't have enough actors. It is this, and it's one of the things, I talk about this quite a lot. It's very important that actors remember their why. Why are you an actor? Why do you want to be an actor? And then when you go back to that, you think, oh, you didn't want to be an actor to sit around waiting for some casting director to remember you and call you to be nurse number 5. You wanted, most people, not everybody, but most people who I've spoken to, and that's a lot of people, want to be an actor because they want to be seen, because they want to be heard, and because they want to be part of a narrative, and they want to tell stories. There are many, many ways to do this. There's a lot of the times actors tell me, I don't want to do theatre. And I'm like, why? But theatre is the greatest joy an actor can have, because you're interacting with an audience. There's obviously a problem with the cost of living. So when you're trying to work as a professional actor, it's very complicated to make enough money. Actors also have a tendency to think, oh, I'm creative, so they don't plan financially, so they feel very, very insecure. But going back to your proper question, is there are always roles for every single age. What there are not are these, and it's changing slightly. In Hollywood, there aren't those great lead roles in action movies, or a lot of their big studio pictures do have male roles because they're war movies. There are things like that. But very few people are getting those roles anyway, even the men or the women. So there aren't that many roles for older men either. But there are more roles for A-lister men, possibly in Hollywood, than there are for A-lister women. Also, there is a slight tendency of, in the America, and this is said from a the point of view that I do not live or work in the American film industry. I don't live there, but there is evidence of pay disparity. And there is evidence in Hollywood of toxic masculinity. Masculinity doesn't just mean men and men. It means that toxicity I was talking about before. There is a slight tendency, in America it's very money orientated. In Europe, and the studies that I have been involved in and looked at, there is much more parity in pay between men and women. In Spain, where I live, particularly, and Pep did a study in the Catalan film industry, it was total parity between men and women, and also between the roles for men and women. In Spain, we have great examples of directors like Bayona, Almodovar, Amenabar. Their leads are women. They have elevated women. Almodovar particularly has always elevated older women to play. But in terms of the great pyramid of being an actor, there is a huge base of actors that don't work a lot. And then it goes up to a very small pinnacle of the people who are in the A-list of the Hollywood system. And when we say A-list, what I mean by that is they're the people who will get your films financed if you have them. So everybody wants those films. There's a problem with film financing. But the more we say that there aren't roles for older women, the less roles there will be for older women. And the more we celebrate the wonderful older actresses we have, like what we call the dames in England, like Judi Dench, Emma Thompson, Helena Bonham Carter, the amazing Spanish actresses that I know, like Marisa Paredes, Penelope Cruz, who's not an older woman, but she is now. I mean, if we're talking about what people in Hollywood see as being older, and people who have long-term careers. And we also have to show an interest in seeing these films. Like, if people continue to want to go and see Superman and not look for that great European film, like, what was the film that I absolutely loved? That was, I'm trying to remember the name, won in the European Film Awards with Sandra Müller, the German actress. About, what was it called? I will come up. 1 second, I just have to look it up. Because it's called different things in different languages. Ruben Östlund was the director, and The Triangle of Sadness.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that is
Fantastic
just
film.
a brilliant film.
Fantastic.
And then there was the other film that I'm thinking of, which was hang on. There was another not Force for Sure. There's another film that I'm particularly thinking of. But there are many, many films with really good European actresses in it. And then we forget about them and we go back to talking about American films. Or The Impossible, which is the Bayona film. Naomi Watts was the lead in that. Amazing performance. She won an Oscar. I mean, the more we talk about them and celebrate them, the more likely it is that financiers and production companies are going to make more of these kinds of films.
Right. That is right. You also spoke about draconian hours in the industry, and
yeah, this is the one thing I would change. The biggest problem for me in the film industry today is that we have what I think are unsustainable working hours. It's one of the reasons I'm a casting director. I'm not in production, because I could have been both. I've got a background in both. Was that when you work in film, you have to get up incredibly early. You have to be on set at 7 o'clock, and you don't get home till 9 o'clock, which means that you can't be a good parent, you can't be a good partner, and you cannot have hobbies outside of the film industry. I mean, you could barely go to the dentist. And I feel that, in the world we're moving, in every other industry, we're moving towards 4-day weeks instead of 3-day weeks, instead of 5-day weeks. And in the film industry, there's still many productions that are doing 6-day weeks. And I can remember, when I was working in film many years ago and I was on production and we were doing 6 days a week, you don't even have time to do your laundry. You don't have time to have anything. It was very funny. I can remember I was working on a film called Greenwich Mean Time, and there was a young girl living in my house, a 16-year-old, and she met somebody from the film set who was trying to flirt with her. And he was saying, and she said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And he was like, "Oh, I work in film." And she was like, oh, God, don't want anything to do with you. You're never going to be at home. And he called me up. He said, what are you telling him? I said, she lives with me. I'm looking after her. She sees that I can't have breakfast with her. I can't have lunch with her. I can't have dinner with her. That I get up before she goes to school and I come home after she's been in bed. So obviously, why would she think that working in the film industry is glamorous? You know, and it's really, really important. You know, that's the thing that I think if we could change. And when I talk to producers about it, they know because of the cost of equipment, because of this, but there's a very high cost, I think, in mental health in our industry because of this. You know, and it's the same with like when you are on a film, you're in production, there is very little sense that anything in your personal life can be a priority. So I know people whose wives or partners have been giving birth and they can't even, you know, take the day off. We saw that really very upsetting incident, you know, where the AD died on a shoot and they start shooting the next day. Like, I don't know any other industries, and I don't know all industries, but I have this sense that in other people would allow time for grieving. It wouldn't just be, oh, you're dead and we've replaced you and we're starting shooting at 8 o'clock the following morning, as though you'd never existed. And that, there's a sense of that that's very addictive when you're working, because it feels like you're, you know, together working for the common aim. But as we go forward in the world, I feel like that's one of the things that's made it more difficult for women to work as in the technical side of things, because as DOPs or as heads of department, there's a much greater sacrifice. It's still, you know, this is where I am sort of slightly talking about gender, although it's not all women and it's not all men, but in most families that I know, the woman is still the primary caretaker when the child is small, which is very difficult to be a primary caretaker if you're on set for 12 hours and you're not allowed to even take a phone call. Like, you can't have your mobile phone and go, oh yes, oh she's sick in the nursery, oh I'll come and get her. No, that doesn't happen. And then when you work 5 days at, you know, 60 hours minimum, as you do in film, it's very difficult to keep balance in the rest of your life. So that's the thing that I feel would be a radical change if you could shoot. There are two people I know who've done that. Almodovar's producer is women, and they don't start as early because Almodovar has a shooting schedule that suits him because he can now, and I think that's an amazing thing. And then there's a wonderful film called 100 Days with My Great Aunt, which was made by Miguel Ángel Muñoz, a Spanish actor, director, about his great aunt and the pandemic and how he spent time with her because she was his very, very special person. And because she was, you know, so old, they just shot round when it worked for her. And it becomes a beautiful film. You can make films where you make a nicer shooting schedule. And, you know, that's something I think would be an amazing development. If I was a billionaire, because you need an awful lot of money, I would try to make films where, you know, people only had to shoot 4 days a week, you know, or 3 days a week and 1 day rehearsal. And I think we would probably elevate the storytelling and we'd elevate people's happiness. But it's going the other way. Now everybody wants to do things even quicker. You know, pre-production times have been cut, rehearsal times have been cut because of money, and AI is making us do everything like very, very quickly. So what I want is a go slow movement, and what the rest of the world is heading towards is a go faster movement.
It's a little bit like
also
slow food.
Something popped up in my head about, do you think the stressful, a bit maybe inhumane thing about those working hours a little bit limits our creatively, because we are all so stressed?
Totally.
And on the set you cannot even make those decisions that would lead towards more art, towards something that will speak to more people.
Totally.
It's just a random thought, but I think...
No, I totally think, I mean, and it's the thing I talk about a lot with actors, is when you go into stress response, this is a fact, not just my theory, part of your brain switches off. So it's the part of your brain that listens and the part of your brain that takes good decisions, which is what we're seeing in the world. A lot of people are in stress response at the moment. And this happens on film sets. I've worked with a lot of young directors. I've worked with a lot of people who've made one film and never made another film because it's so stressful, and their films are not as good as they would have been if they weren't sleep deprived and if they hadn't to stick to this very, very strict shooting schedule. I mean, I've worked on films where they've sacked the director because he hasn't met the shooting schedule in the first week, because he's been thinking about that. You know, completion bond says this guy's not going to finish the film under budget, on budget, in budget, and they've sacked him on, you know, Friday, and we still shot with another director the following Monday. I've seen, you know, lots of directors who have beautiful ideas and beautiful projects, and then because of the budget they have to adjust, and then when they get to the shooting, first day of shooting, they're exhausted. Like, one of the things I always say to directors, young directors, when I'm talking to them is like, remember to try and have a week break before you start shooting, and go away and remember why you're in love with this story. Because I feel it's a bit like people who get obsessed with their wedding. Like, you know, they forget that there's a marriage that you have to have afterwards, but they arrive at the wedding so exhausted because they, as particularly, this is more women than men in my experience, but they've been on a diet for 3 months to get into a dress that they can't get into, that they're being makeup, they've had to deal with all their families, they've been planning it, and then they arrive, so they're basically starved and overtired, and they have this massive day, and then they wake up the next day and they're like, oh, now I have to make this marriage work.
Yeah, like, what now?
What now? And that happens to quite a lot of young directors, because they've got to the day of, you know, principal photography, first day of shooting, and they can't even remember why they're telling the story, because they've been trying to find the money, trying to get there. There hasn't been enough space. I mean, I think time and space are very good for creativity, and I think stress is very good for getting things done. And, you know, and I like stress myself. I like deadlines and I like all of that. But I do think that a balance between the two would make for better storytelling, make for better decisions, I think. But not everybody. Some people, you know, they're different. Some people like that last minute, and they think that that's what makes them, you know, better.
We also talked about, you know, these expectations of women when we go to them, that they always have to look good behind and in front of the camera. So in front it's easier because we have makeup artists and everyone doing it for you. But when you are working in the crew, you're behind. And I would love to hear your story again about that. We're talking about there's so much stress, as you're saying. There's so long hours of like shooting. And then the women come to set, and even they're, you know, they're in the crew and they have to look good. And the men, you said, was so interesting, and I loved that it was like they're coming from the, you know, from the battle, and they look fantastic, and they're like haven't even, you know, shaved, showered, or brushed their teeth, and it's just like, yeah. How do we get there as women?
I just don't know. I mean, I think this is where women are more judgmental of other women. So I don't know whether that's how I see it, but I've had this sense that when a woman, like I've heard even people say, oh, she's let herself go, or she's done that. And that's when, you know, when women either haven't taken care of their weight, or they have, they're not wearing makeup, or they have, you know, like most women dye their hair at a certain age, which I find, you know, there's a fashion now not to. I've never ever dyed my hair, so I'm kind of like on the non-dyeing hair side of it, but most women I know dye their hair, and when they have roots, because they haven't had time to go to a hairdresser, people are like, oh, she's letting herself go, or they have to. But if you're on a 8-week shoot or a 12-week shoot, when are you going to have time to go to the hairdresser to have your hair dyed? And there's this sense, or even your nails, women are meant to have their nails, are meant to be manicured, you know, and you're meant to look polished when you are a successful woman in a way that, and I don't know if that's my generation, I don't know if that's going to change, but I certainly still feel that there's men kind of look attractive when they've been, you know, to battle and making their film, and, you know, there's something about men with shaggy hair and, you know, like a non-shaved beard, not a beard, but, you know, an a man with facial hair is somehow seen to be attractive. Stubble is the word I'm looking for. Whereas when a woman has facial hair, she's looked like as the worst thing that you can do, practically. It's like, oh, you have hair here. But, you know,
just
like
a tiny one.
just
take it off now.
Yeah, you know, there's a sense that it's really taboo, or even, you know, even things like not shaving your armpits. Like, it's still quite a shocking thing. Like, if you turn up and you're shooting in a t-shirt and you have hairy armpits and you're a woman, it's seen as being like quite a radical statement. Whereas,
Like, yes.
you know, I mean, I think it's a very weird kind of not talked about thing. So, but that means, like, you know, women have to get up earlier to go to set because there's about half an hour of grooming to get ready, whereas men can just kind of roll out of bed, have a shower. I mean, I do think they do shower. I hope they shower.
Of course they do.
And brush their teeth. The best case scenario. But they can turn up looking like, you know, stubble looking, and it just makes them look more powerful and more attractive. And for women, somehow it doesn't, at least from my perspective. And I feel like that's how other people judge women as well. I don't know if men judge women like that, but women, we're very judgmental of other women.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. So let's just talk about facial hair here. I wasn't going to do that, but I'm going to do it. You guys, I'm going to be very honest. I have on like here, I think, or here, there's like sometimes like this long ass black hair, just one. That's like, I'm like, how did that? So I'm being very honest here. I'm like, what happened? And I had one incident where I think I had like something here. It's so funny. And I must have been wearing like this, you know, what do you call them? The ones that jump, that come to the neck.
Oh, yeah. Polo
turtleneck.
Turtleneck or polo neck, yeah.
And there's one friend of mine, exactly what she was like, oh, there's a hair on it, and pulled. And I was like, ow. And she was like, I am so sorry. And she was like devastated. And I'm like, yeah, I have hair. Like, it can happen. Like, so I'm just going to talk about it because maybe that helps when we just start talking about it, that we all have it.
Yes.
Everyone. So let's
But we
just
all
go
have
there.
it, but we're very, very critical of it.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yes.
know, I have one hair that goes here sometimes, and I have no idea. It's just one.
Yeah.
And like, when I forget about it and I see it, then my friends will be like, whereas you don't do that with a man.
I know.
They have hair sprouting out all
So
over the
nobody
place.
here-
Yeah.
What I found interesting is exactly what you said, is that when you kind of not reacting in a way that society expects you, it looks like a statement, radical statement, like hair, armpits, you know. Even though if it's for you, it's not. It's just the way how you are. But somehow it's like the silent statement that you are making towards everyone, and everyone kind of accepts it as this, even though your intention is maybe like completely different. I don't know.
Well, your attention might be just that you haven't had time.
Exactly.
Or you have, you know, basically I would have thought when you're a director, you have very little time for, you know, personal grooming. So it's not actually a statement. I can't remember ever having seen a female director with unshaved armpits. So it's just a hypothetical situation. Yeah. But I have, you know, worked and thinking, oh, you know, they've had to make a real effort to be here. You know, like their hair is washed, brushed, looks good in a way that men don't. Although that might change as well. Men are much more vain now, younger generations, than my generation. So I think that might be
So
different.
Girls, we're all going to do the Pamela Anderson thing. No makeup, nothing. Just, which she does have a little bit, whatever.
She does. She looks perfect, I think.
She's perfect. So.
And happy.
Yeah.
This is the most important thing.
Exactly. I mean, she looks happy, you know, having fun and doing amazing work. So that's great.
What I'm wondering, working with actors on so many productions, different actors, international actors, and, you know, living in Spain, what do you think is the biggest emotional challenge actors are facing today among other things that we discussed on, you know, like world level, but what is specific to actors in particular?
I think it's everything. I mean, actors are quite empathetic, so I think one of the biggest emotional challenges is social media, because they feel like they have to be present on it, whereas it's quite depressing to be on social media because it's got, the algorithm is depending where your algorithm is, but it's quite complicated. You know, you get a lot of sound bites. I think the fact that we are being told that, you know, AI is going to take their jobs, I think that creates a huge amount of anxiety. I think another huge, and this is more Europe, but possibly in other parts of the world as well, the fact that the cost of living is going up so much. Like, we're being polarized at the moment. There are some industries that are making an awful lot of money. So if you're in startups, in technology, or lots of other unmentionable industries that I don't want to talk about, you're making a lot of money. And if you're an actor, you're not, because salaries have basically been frozen for many, many years. There's a lot of... and then about the stories that you want to take, I think emotionally for actors, it's a complicated time. I think that it's a time where they have to be aware. I mean, not that they have to. I think it's complicated for everybody and for younger generations. You know, so it's very different if you're an older, successful actor, then you're just slightly concerned that AI may replace you in the future, but you've had fun. And for younger actors, it's like, oh, do I need to have a presence on social media to get cast? Oh, I don't want to be in social media, or I do want to be on social media, or I've done so well on social media that now people think I'm an influencer instead of an actor. Like, there's different things. And then, like, the cost of living in many of the major cities means that if you are a young person, you can't live in the city. And as an actor, it's very difficult if you live out in the middle of nowhere, because you do need other actors to do stuff. So that's what I think, apart from all the other stuff that's going on in the world that makes it emotionally complicated for everybody. And I also, the other thing I think is difficult, and this is very, for the newer generations, is that there's a lot of talk now about balance, like finding balance in your life. And if you're an actor, you can't have a balanced life. So the idea that, you know, I'm seeing it with lots of young people, and they're saying, oh, I need to do this for my balance, this. And I was like, well, just embrace the madness, because balance sounds great in theory, but in practice, you're probably imbalanced if you decided to be an actor. So just enjoy that.
I mean, you are, like, for me, casting directors. That's why I'm so happy that you're now seeing the Oscars. You're also now part of, I mean, congratulations. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
So happy.
How was that evening? Can you tell us about it? I mean, you were so gorgeous, the dress you were wearing, and please tell us about that a little bit.
Oh, that was fun. It was just fun. I mean, I wanted to go because it was the welcome cocktail. They have 3. They have one in LA, one in London, and one in New York. But for date-wise, London suited me best. And it was fun. I went with a friend. It's a great community. There were some people I knew there. There were a lot of people that I knew who they were, but they weren't my friends. But it felt like quite a serious thing, you know. And for me, it's always, for those kind of things, I'm always thinking about how excited little me would be. You know, the very, crazy teenager who set off on a very long journey, age 16. I left Ireland when I was 16, and I was thinking, oh, she'd be thinking, oh, this is cool. And then for me, an amazing thing happened was that my very, very best friend from childhood, I was landing on the plane in England, and she sent me a message, oh, I'm in London for the weekend. And I was like, oh, so am I. And then by coincidence, it turned out that she was having dinner beside the Dorchester, which is where the cocktail party was. So I could go and have a drink with her and her family before. And then after the event, I went there with my friend, and then with another friend from my village who's one of the world's top publicists, who was at the event as well. And I was like, hey, our friend is around the corner. And so we went and had this kind of amazing sort of Irish celebration, which meant that I drank my body weight in champagne, and I'm still regretting it. But it was fun. It's one of those things that's nice. It's about being part of a community. And, I'm a very small frog in that community, the big pond of that community. And I quite like that. And it was interesting. And it was interesting to talk to people. It was interesting to hear the President's Academy speech, because people want to be positive, and we want to have a more inclusive world and, a peaceful world. And that was addressed. And, it's always fun getting dressed up and going to a party.
You looked amazing. Just saying,
thanks
gorgeous.
to my wonderful friend Paola, who, it was one of the few times in my life I felt appropriately dressed. But I have a wonderful friend Paola, who's a fashion designer who I used to work with. And so she said, I'm in charge.
Yes.
So I wore what she told me to wear.
Yes. Oh my God. And that's what I want to say with casting directors, why I celebrate this, is that you're for me like the middle dot, like you connect so many, in the industry. And that's where I want to go with this, is how is that process? Because there are a lot of, let's say, actors, producers, and directors, young, starting out. They don't really know how to start or where to go, or can I reach out to Luci and ask her to cast my film? What does that mean? Or am I, not big enough yet? Or because you obviously have a
It's
big
very
career.
complicated. Yeah, it's complicated because my work comes to me organically, generally. I do this job because I get paid. The stuff that I like doing that I don't get paid for, like the Actor's Home, but as a casting director, I do it as a profession. I'm when people come into my life organically, I'm very happy, but I'm not actively looking for work. It's quite complicated to explain. I don't like casting things where actors don't get paid. That's the first thing. So I don't want to help people who haven't got a budget. I do think that they need to cast. I do think that they need to work, and I do think that the industry needs to support them. But me personally, it's been a decision, because otherwise I would spend my whole time casting students' short films, and then they come with unrealistic expectations that I can get them really good actors. I also I'm very independent in my life. I don't like owing anything to anybody. And if I ask an actor to work for free in a short film, they feel like they're doing me a favor, even though they're not. And then there is a sense that I will then cast them at some time in the future. And I decided I think quite a long time ago, 5 years ago, to eliminate that from my process, because I don't want actors to feel that they have to say yes to me, which they would inevitably. Then they would end up working for free, in the expectation that then maybe I would be considering them for other things. There are exceptions to that. There are some stories that I genuinely believe need to be told, and there are very few exceptions. Then, in general, with independent filmmaking, there are a lot of people who are unrealistic, and they think they need names to finance it, but they don't have the budget for it. So I say no to a lot of those jobs, because there's no point. I mean, I've said no to about 3 this month so far, because they come knowing that they say, oh, but if you can get me Penelope Cruz, then I will have the budget for the film. And I'm saying, yes, but her decision-making process is not necessarily going to want to do your film where there's no budget for anything else and you haven't got a curriculum. Whereas if somebody comes and they really want open casting, and casting I'm interested in, which is discovering new talent, then I'm more likely to want to help them. But that's very rare. And I've done amazing films like that, where the producer's been totally upfront. I'm very open about this. I know where I am, I know what I'm doing, and I know that I don't really like development casting in general. Which is where you're trying to find somebody to get the financing for a picture. Therefore, most of my jobs, when they come to me, they've already been greenlit. Not all of them, and there's some wonderful projects that I love being involved in, but they come to me in a very organic way. And otherwise, and it's very complicated for filmmakers, because the financing of films is shit. Because it's dependent on cast a lot of the time. And that's the other thing. The hours I would change and the way they finance. I keep saying to producers, just tell them I'm casting your film, which means that you're going to get a good cast, or me, or other amazing casting directors. Like if you have Nancy Bishop, or if you have Dan Hubbard, or Orla, or Louise, or Orla O'Connor and Louise Kiley. If you have a really good casting director, they're going to get you the right cast. But that's not enough in the financing world for sales agents. They want to have a name attached. And names aren't always the best people for the roles. But I'm not a financier. I don't want to be a financier. People with money are very conservative with their money. And I keep saying that's why it's very important to elevate casting directors, because if you have a really good casting director, and, any of the big, well-known ones in America, Gina J, Nina Gold, they're going to get you a brilliant cast. So finance the film on that, not waiting to have Antonio Banderas or George Clooney or Sharon Stone or Julia Roberts doing your film, because you're going to make a good film. But it's to do with sales agents, international sales, publicity. They all want something to talk about. And it's just the way it's structured. So yeah, I'm not very interested in looking for work. I've never really, that's why I love being a casting director. Work finds me. I'm very, very lucky with the work that I get. I'm very lucky. I work for the same people over and over again because I work for Spanish service production companies who bring projects to Spain. And then I work with some very auteur directors. I'm very proud of the work I do with Juanma Bajualoa, who's an amazing Spanish Basque director who makes what I consider true independent filmmaking, because it's just his story and it's not trying to please anybody, any studio, any financier. But that means it's a very long process for him to make the films. But I love working with him, but I wouldn't want to work with 15 independent filmmakers because the process is so long. So I'm very happy to balance the work that I get doing high concept TV work, where I'm allowed to cast just like, I've just finished the second season of Daryl Dixon Walking Dead. I loved working on that show. I loved the casting of that. I loved working with the showrunner, David Zabel. He was amazing. And we have a really, really, really good cast, because nothing about the cast was going to influence the financing. He and the directors, like Dan Percival, they wanted actors who were right for the roles.
Oh,
and it was a joy.
Oh, that's a dream. That's beautiful. Wow.
That sounds like integrity to me, that you understand how industry works, of course, being so many years into it. You don't necessarily challenge that, but you have your own rules and your own balance that you want to have in your work. And you're open to creative projects, independent projects, but on your own terms. And I think that is very beautiful.
Yeah, when they're independent and they're truly independent. Exactly. The ones I don't like is when they're independent, but they're trying to have big stars to get money so that they're not independent. They're the ones that drive me insane, because they're like, either you're anyway. Yeah. It's authenticity. Yeah, but yes. It's totally fine. I have I have my own value system. And it would be quite difficult to explain it to anybody else, but I kind of know what it is. And that keeps me very grounded in what I do.
One thing that I heard now, and I think is really smart, and I think it's something for all of us out there if we're creatives, and that is using casting directors like you, if you get your yes, to put that out there and say, hey, look at your body work. What you have done is amazing. And you are multiple award-winning casting director.
No, I've only won one award, actually, to be honest, because
I'm going to give
I've
you
been nominated.
Okay. You've been nominated, okay. Well, they're nominated award-winning.
Because there aren't that many. And also, and there are many, 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 many amazing casting directors.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very happy with my parcel, my part, but there are so many others who have done really groundbreaking work, much more than I have done, because I live in my bubble, and I'm very happy with my bubble as English speaking casting director in Spain, but I'm not in LA and I'm not in London, or there's somebody like Louise Kiley in Ireland, and she has been so influential, and other Irish casting directors, in taking Irish talent and putting them on the world stage, and then they're getting those big productions. And I'm hoping that what we're working together as casting directors now is going to elevate each other. And when I was on the board of CSA Europe, we talked about it a lot. And there's facts. A well-cast film makes more money than a film that has cast, like independent films, like just talking to people who are interested in money. Really, some of the films, independent films, they make a lot more money than these big budget ones that have been cast just with an A-lister to get the money in the first place. But then you have to have a new system of financing, and things like that. So I'm hoping that with this elevation of casting directors, with now that we can be nominated for an Oscar, now that people are talking more about casting directors and talking about more about their work, that there will be a sense that they will just trust us to do our job, and that financiers will be, oh, you have Maureen Hughes attached, or you have Louise Kiley, or you have Dan Hubbard, or you have Nancy Bishop. Then they'll just say, oh, well, then the film is going to work. And we can market and sell it on that. But this might just be a dream. But.
So I have to say, I really do like your dream world.
Yes, me too.
Where everyone elevates each other and supports each other, and where you are creating this safe space for actors. Also, as again here, when you work with directors, you're very clear on who you want to work with. So you're very honest. And also now...
Sometimes too honest.
Yeah, okay. Which is, that can be. And also with the casting directors, that you guys are now also together creating this safe space and community, that you elevate each other and work together, which I think is beautiful. And I want to thank you so much for all the work you're doing. It's amazing. And thank you for the precious time.
No, thank you for having me. I love talking.
Wonderful. Wonderful having you. It was really eye-opening and a lot that I've learned now. And I'm really going to take with me, and I think for us out there is, and also those that are financing films, if you're listening, really think about what you, Luci, said, and what you were saying is that a well-cast film is making more money a lot of times than the ones that are just focused on one human being or the one A-lister. Exactly. And that's beautiful. And I myself, I have to be very honest, I wasn't aware of that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Somebody did a study of that even in the UK. It's something that to be aware of, and, but the problem is that we need the money in advance. So, that's the pre-sales, which is why we end up in these, getting casting. Anyway, let's see what happens next.
Yes. Embrace the madness, as you said.
Exactly.
This spoke to me on so many levels, because I think we have very high, unrealistic sometimes expectations of balance, which balance can be different on even like different days or periods. And sometimes it's just work, keeping up with work. It's being in balance. So yes.
And I think it's just not beating yourself up when you feel imbalanced. Like, just go for it. Don't fight it.
Yeah. We didn't even mention, oh my God, E.T. Hi. Where'd that come from? Well, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.